Okay, so let's talk about Ronald Reagan for a second, because that was in my notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1974, Ronald Reagan claimed that he saw a UFO while on his plane. This was back when he was governor of California. This is before he was president.
Yep.
And from what I read, his staff told him not to mention it publicly at all because they didn't want him to look crazy to the voters, essentially. Right. But then when he was president, he actually had a speech and he said that an alien threat would bring the world together.
That's what I just referred to.
What it kind of reminded me of is the original graphic novel of The Watchmen. I don't know if you read that or not. The movie version is a little bit different. The TV show kind of goes along with this. But in The Watchmen, graphic novel, the so-called villain, although he's not exactly a villain, but he's somewhat of a villain, Ozymandias, basically, it's set where the U.S. and Russia are about to launch nuclear weapons on each other, and the world is basically about to go away. And Ozymandias created this man-made alien that he dropped in the middle of New York City, which caused mass carnage. Thousands of people died. And suddenly the U.S. and Russia all come together and they're best friends. And now they partner up and nobody wants to kill each other anymore. And even though it's a big deception, he's brought world peace. Is that kind of what Reagan was talking about in a way?
It is, but he was a bit deceived on that, because what the real agenda is that this is a transnational and global organization running these programs. It's not just U.S. And what they really want is a militaristic, I might even say totalitarian system where everyone gives up their freedoms and security because of this alleged threat from outer space. Now, one thing that, of course, if you're a thinking person, but most humans are just emotional and don't think, is that if you're a thinking person, if there were hostile civilizations out there, and given the fact that we can prove we have been targeting and knocking them out of the skies since 1940s, if they were hostile, given the fact that their technologies are in the thousands to hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than ours, we would be gone. I mean, this planet would be a charcoal brick floating through space with no life on it. So they're clearly not hostile. In fact, I would flip it around. The problem in this little corner of the cosmos are Homo sapiens with the weapons we have, and the fact that we have not become what's called a level 1 civilization, meaning a peaceful civilization. Look what's going on in the Middle East right now as we speak. So I think that this is a big problem, but it's very easy to the jingoistic thing of, like the movie Independence Day with Will Smith, let's kick alien butt, right? Well, it's it's a rallying cry, but who would benefit from that kind of, and by the way, Mr. Grush has been deceived with this kind of disinformation, very directly, and I know who's doing it to him. And if you were deceived in that way, then you would actually win the battle of disclosure. And by the way, I'm the founder of the Global Disclosure Project that started in 1993, 30 years ago. But you would lose the war, because the real long-term objective is to unite the world around some kind of militaristic, authoritarian entity where people give up their freedoms for their safety. And as Benjamin Franklin's reported have said, those who give up their freedom for security shall have neither. This is a very big concern that we have, and that this kind of manipulation is not hard to do. And let's not forget, there is recent historic precedent for this. We cannot forget the fact that Mr. Cheney sent Colin Powell up to the UN with vials of material showing that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction when he didn't have them. And Colin Powell's chief of staff has come forward saying it was the biggest mistake in national security history, that they were gaslit and deceived, and that was the foundation of us invading Iraq, which has led to the fracturing of that area in Syria and all the mess in the 20 years since. But that was a deceptive operation. Let's not forget, everybody heard of the Vietnam War? The Gulf of Tonkin, look it up. We staged or exaggerated attacks on our ships in the Gulf of Tonkin so that humans and Americans would become hysterical. And President Johnson, who was skeptical of expanding that conflict, was pressured to vastly expand it to the benefit of whom? The military-industrial complex, the very profit-centered operatives that are keeping the UFO issue secret. Same people. And those sort of operations, anyone who knows history can look them up, fact check what I just shared. And the big one, however, is this. Now, I will say an intermediate one between 9/11 and now would be the abuses of power that occurred after the COVID pandemic occurred. And there were serious, unnecessary abuses of state power. And so, but I think that, of course, is one of the big risks of people, let's say, bowing down to power when they're afraid. When there's fear, the state can run amok over everyone's liberties. And I think people should not be naive about the fact that if the announcement that we're not alone in the universe, if it is pivoted in the direction that I know they're going to try to move it, then we're going to be in a much worse, it'll be planet gulag. It'll be locked down planet gulag. So I think we have to be very, very vigilant about this, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. The reason the United States is so key, there are assets in other countries that deal with UAPs all over the world. Brazil, Raytheon has facilities, and there are facilities out in the outback of Australia at Pine Gap and in Great Britain and all over. And we know where these places are, and we know what's happening at these places. But the big center of power is the United States because it's the largest economy, and it's also the highest tech sector and has the biggest R&D aerospace budget from the $1 trillion or so in defense, intelligence, and other spending. So let's say if there's a 10 or 20% misuse of funds out of that $1 trillion, that's 100 to 200 billion a year. And I think that'd be conservative of what's going into these illegal projects. So I think because of that, the Congress, which holds the power of the purse to fund things, and it was mentioned at that committee hearing by one member of the committee that they need to start thinking about withholding funding if these agencies and corporations don't start cooperating.